So hello and yes, welcome back to another video everyone. Now as you can see today, this video is a bit different. I am joined by the wonderful Mr. Alex Pitt.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
And just in case some of you haven't subscribed to him, which you definitely should, there is going to be a link in the description, top link to his YouTube channel. Go subscribe, go show this guy some love. He's got a fantastic channel. And also, I'm going to hold this up every time I have you. He's an author. I'm joined by an author. Look at
Yep,
that.
absolutely. One day I'll sign that for you. Don't worry.
I'm looking forward to it. I really
Yeah,
am. I'm going to keep it all fresh and nice for you to sign it.
good.
But today, the topic of the video, Wes Anderson. He's a director I've spoken about a lot. A lot of other people have now spoken about. We're going to rank his movies from worst to best.
Yes,
And you actually had to do your homework a bit on this, didn't you?
I did. So I'd seen about half of his films. I know he's got
Mhm,
nine, but I'd seen four or five. But I've done my homework. I've seen all of them.
mhm.
Um, and yes, I had a good time because he's a fantastic director. I really do like this guy.
Yeah. No, he is really great. It's really nice that Criterion are putting his Blu-rays out as well. I want
Mhm.
to say because get these like pristine copies of them, really nice treatment. It's exciting. He deserves it. And yeah, we're going to get into it. So I'm going to let you go first as you're the guest, and as you
Okay.
let me go first on your channel.
Uh-huh. Yes. So similarly to Taika's
Mhm,
ranking. I don't know this again, but I have a
mhm.
feeling that we may also have the same bottom one because this is generally considered his weakest, I think.
Yeah,
That is Bottle Rocket.
we do have the same one.
Mhm. Okay. But also like Taika's list, I don't think that this is a bad film. I think that this is a very enjoyable film,
Mhm,
but it's not because the thing which I like the most about Wes Anderson
mhm,
is that a lot of his films have kind of these quirky characters.
mhm,
He apart from a couple of films, he almost focuses on the characters more than the plot.
mm.
But I don't think that's what he did in Bottle Rocket. I think that he focused on the plot more than the characters, and I don't think that the plot was as good as it should have been. Obviously, you've got the relationship between the two brothers who are brothers in real life,
Mhm,
Luke and Owen Wilson,
mhm,
who both appear in a lot of Wes Anderson's films. So I like the relationship between them. It did feel very real, obviously, because they are brothers. Um, but then the kind of plot that they had around them, I just thought it was a little bit messy. And I think that the pacing is quite bad. The first half is paced really well. Then the second half, it's quite repetitive and it just
mhm.
kind of drags the film down for,
Yeah.
for me personally.
Mhm. Yeah, I pretty much feel the same. I find this film a bit boring and a bit stale at times. I think just because I don't know if it was anyone else's film, maybe I'd like it a little bit more. But I really miss when I watch this film. I've only seen it twice, but both times I put it on, it's like this just doesn't feel very Wes Anderson-y to me. There are little hints of it, and you know the thing is, I suppose you got to be a bit kind towards it because it is his first film,
Yeah.
which is why I wouldn't say it's a bad film. It is a decent film, but yeah, I agree with everything you said, but I find it a little bit boring at times. This movie, I think.
Yeah, and it's a very short film. It's only about an hour and a half, but it does
Hmm.
it does feel longer than its runtime, which
Yeah,
is never a good sign, really.
no,
I'm just curious though, have you seen the short that he did a few years before this
I
film?
have not actually. I have
Because
not.
I watched the short and then immediately watched the film,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I pretty much everything that I feel about the short film, I feel
Hmm.
about the actual film. I have the same issues with it, but it was
All right.
like
Yeah.
20 minutes instead of an hour
Hmm.
and a half.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. I think I might like this film slightly more than you because I don't.
Hmm.
I I I lean towards. I still think that this is a good film.
Hmm.
It's definitely his weakest film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, was this? I'm just curious as well. Was this one of the first ones that you saw from him, or did you watch this after you'd seen a few?
It was after I'd seen a few, which is
Mhm.
why I think I feel the way I do about it because I'd already been introduced to his style and some of his more exciting films. That this one was a little bit disappointing, I think, on first watch.
Yeah, and I might feel the same way as you if because I'd already seen some of these, but the
Hmm.
ones that I had seen, I saw them a while ago. So
Yeah.
also the ones that I've seen that I had already seen, I have
Hmm.
also watched again recently.
Yeah.
So I've basically been binging Wes Anderson for the
Yeah.
past week, and Bottle Rocket was the one that I started with because it was his first film. So that might be why I like it slightly more.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's definitely still his weakest for me.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things as well where, like funny enough, we said on your video on your channel, the Taika video where we talked about Eagle versus Shark. Same thing. You can tell that this is his first film. I
Yeah.
think, whereas you could with Taika as well on Eagle versus Shark. So.
Yeah, they are very similar in that way. And kind of what we were saying on that video as well is that Taika's flair really
Hmm.
came after his first
Yeah.
film. And I feel very similarly about Wes Anderson's because
Hmm.
they're not the same. They don't have the same kind of sensibilities when it comes to filmmaking.
Hmm.
But I do think that Wes Anderson's he really got into it after this film.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
completely agree with that.
mhm. Okay.
So, do
I
you want to? Yeah, I
yeah.
forget how many films there are. Eight, number eight.
Yes, number 8. So I've gone with the Darjeeling Limited as number
Oh,
8.
okay. Hmm.
Um, Also, this is one that I hadn't seen until a couple of days ago.
Oh,
I For the first half of this film, and I feel personally that this is a film that doesn't have three acts. I think this is a
yeah,
one half and a
yeah,
second half film.
I agree.
And for the first half, I thought that this was a really, really good film.
Yeah.
And then I did not care about anything that happened in the second half. It
No,
just dragged it so far down for me.
I think I like the second half a bit more than you, but I do completely agree with you. I do
Mhm.
completely agree.
Yes, because everything that happened with the three brothers, and the three brothers, I loved all of them. They were
Hmm.
all very different from
Yeah.
one another, and they all had kind of their own traumas going on at home. And
Hmm.
one was involved in an accident, and one has got a baby on the way. They've all got something interesting about them,
Hmm.
and I liked their interactions on the train. It's just when they got kicked off the train,
Yeah.
for me personally, I
Hmm.
really didn't care about anything from then on, which is a shame because if the second half was at least good for me, this
Hmm.
probably would be a few steps higher. But it can't be just because of that second half.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I honestly can't argue with that at all.
Hmm.
It isn't my number eight though. It isn't quite my number eight.
Okay.
I have my number eight is actually the Isle of Dogs,
Okay.
the latest, or at the minute latest, because we are meant to be getting the French Dispatch this year.
Yeah.
The latest movie from Wes Anderson, the second stop motion picture he's done after Fantastic Mr. Fox. I was really excited about this movie because this is the first film I saw of his in the cinema, and the trailers looked really good. And again, the cast was fantastic. I love Bryan Cranston, so I was really excited to see this film, and I found it interesting, and I thought the film looked and was shot beautifully. I'll say that for a start. And I think all the voice actors done a fantastic job. But I almost feel like maybe he got a bit too carried away with this one because I know he loves to do those awkward shots where characters will look at the camera and stuff. But I feel like they were actually maybe a little bit longer than they needed to be a lot of the times here. I felt the runtime was a little bit too long, even though it's genuinely not a super long movie. And I really didn't like the constant switching back and forth to the dogs and then the humans in, I'm not sure where they were, somewhere in Japan, Tokyo maybe,
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Um, I feel like the going back and forth, it actually got on my nerves a bit. And by the end of it, I just wanted to see the dogs. I didn't like that we had to keep going back to Japan, and it was annoying me. So, but
Yeah.
I don't dislike this film. I think there's some good elements to it, but I think disappointment or disappointed is a good word I'd use to describe how I felt about seeing it for the first time. And I've seen it once since then, and I enjoyed it, but it just didn't wow me.
Hmm. Okay, fair enough. That's not next on my list. I think this
Hmm.
list is probably going to be quite different
Yeah.
because our Taika list was different, but
Hmm.
there was some similarities. I think this list, because there's
Yeah.
more films, it's going to be a bit different.
Yeah.
So I will give my thoughts on that film soon.
Hmm.
But I will say that my number 7 is Rushmore.
Oh, okay. Hmm.
So I like this film as well. I do like this film. The thing which holds this back, and maybe it shouldn't, but I have similar feelings on, I don't know if you've seen it, Stanley Kubrick's Lolita,
I actually haven't seen that Kubrick movie.
because that is about the relationship between an adult and a child.
Hmm.
And I can appreciate the filmmaking in Lolita the
Hmm.
same way that I appreciate what they did in Rushmore, what Wes
Hmm.
Anderson did in Rushmore. But because it was also about, a child trying to get with a teacher,
Hmm.
just for
Yeah.
me personally,
Hmm.
that doesn't really sit right with me. I don't, so I didn't really connect to the story
Yeah.
much as much of a lot of his films. But I did quite like it, and I think, unlike the Darjeeling Limited, I think that Rushmore actually got better as it went
Hmm.
along, as we're introduced to Bill Murray's character, and they're kind of trying to constantly one up each other and
Yeah.
outdo each other, trying to win the woman over.
Hmm.
So I did like that aspect. It's just because of that
Mm.
story element, I didn't quite connect to it as much as a lot of his other films.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair to. I mean, I think everyone sort of has their things with movies. Some things they'd rather just not really watch too much.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Well, my number 7 is Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
Which is a film from this point on, I really do enjoy them all, to be fair.
Hmm.
I want to stress that because I know some people in the comments might not be too happy with this. Because I have noticed online, a lot of people really love this film, or they sort of feel like me, where I like it a lot, but there are just some elements towards it which I just didn't really connect with too much, like the kids running away together and stuff, and then them being on a beach and stuff. They get out a record player, and I can't remember all the specifics, but they go fishing or something like that. I was like, I don't know. Some of this feels like it's been pushed out a bit too far, but and there was a lot of characters in this movie, a lot of side characters to follow. But there's some real nice moments to it. It has one of my favorite Wes Anderson comedic scenes where Bill Murray comes down the stairs with an axe over his back.
Hmm.
I found that scene hilarious. But yeah, it's just not a film that I personally connected with too much, and it's not one that I tend to go back to too often.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Well, not to spoil my ranking, but that
Hmm.
is much higher on
Yeah.
mine than it is for you. But that's fair.
Mm.
Um, what were number 6? So my number
Hmm.
6 is the Royal Tenenbaums,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
which I only saw again recently for the first
Hmm.
time. This, I think, it's hard to say which of his films is kind of widely accepted as his best, but I think The Royal Tenenbaums is definitely at the top of a lot of
Yeah.
people's list.
Hmm.
I don't know where it is for you, but I
It's
was looking at, yeah,
higher.
that's fair. I was looking up
Yeah.
lists online, and a lot of people had The Royal Tenenbaums at number 1, or at least
Hmm.
up there.
Hmm.
For me, I think that it's like what I was saying with Bottle Rocket, that he focused more on the story in Bottle Rocket, even though it didn't
Hmm.
100% work. He
Yeah.
focused on the story more than the characters. But I think the Royal Tenenbaums is kind of flipped,
Hmm.
because the thing which I really do like about this is that you've got all these different types of characters. And
Hmm.
as we mentioned a few times, they all have different personalities. They're not all the same. They all come together and interact with one another, and I really enjoyed that. I think it's a very entertaining film.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the actual kind of plot, the things that they were doing, is
Hmm.
as strong as the characterizations.
Yeah.
But again, it's number 6. But I really like this film. I had a really good time watching it, so I do
Yeah.
like it a lot.
Oh, nice. Well, hey, can't argue any of that. It's I mean, you'll see where it appears on my list soon.
Mhm. Okay.
um, my number 6 is a film you've already talked about, Rushmore,
Hmm. Okay.
which is again, I can sort of understand what you were saying about the him trying to get with his teacher not being like, it's just not very realistic, I suppose. I don't really know if that's something that happens much, but
Oh, no, no, I hope not.
well, you wouldn't hope not. No, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some cases, but
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that you said is I love the relationship he has with Bill Murray in this movie.
Yeah.
I love that, and I love Bill Murray, so it's great that it's him in cast in this role because he does a fantastic job, and he's easily my personal favorite thing about the movie. But yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with much of what you said about the film, to be honest. But again, it's still one of his earlier movies. There are this is where he starts to come into his own style, but I don't think it's until his third movie where he really hits his stride. Um, but it's a good movie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, Bill Murray. I mean, Bill Murray is in a lot of Wes Anderson's films. Wes
Mhm.
Anderson likes to cast the same people
Yeah.
in pretty much all of his
Hmm.
films, especially Bill Murray and Owen Wilson. I think they're
Hmm.
the two that appear in almost all of them.
Yeah.
Um, and I've got to say, out of it's not my number one, but it is one of my favorite Bill Murray
Hmm.
performances. I do
Hmm.
like him a lot in this film.
Yeah. No, definitely. It is a really, really good movie. But yeah, unfortunately, the man's just got a lot of really good movies, so that's why it's fallen a bit low for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I don't. I know some people watching might think, for me, why is the Royal Tenenbaums at number 6?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I don't like the film.
No.
I would give it like an 8 out of 10. I really
Yeah.
like it, but he's just a really good director.
Mm, yeah.
Um, but my number 5 is one that you've already talked about, and that's Isle of Dogs.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Hmm.
I think that I've got the advantage that this was actually one of the first Wes Anderson films that I saw.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't think it was number one, but it was. I know it was definitely one of the first ones that I saw,
Hmm.
um, and I liked it. I saw this one before Fantastic Mr. Fox, which we're
Hmm.
both going to get to at some
Yeah.
point. Um, so I saw this one first, and
Hmm.
I appreciated how different it was.
Hmm.
Um, because there's been a few stop motion animated films now, but this was, I think, one of the first ones that I saw as well. And to me, it was just something different. I
Yeah.
like the story. I
Hmm.
like the characters. I agree with what you were saying about, the storyline switching between the humans
Hmm.
and the dogs. I agree with that. Um, I just had a fun time with this film. Yeah, so I think it's a pretty good film.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, I don't mind the film, to be fair. It's one of those things where I wouldn't say I dislike it. It's just it's definitely not one I'd go back to much myself, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with expectation, because before this,
Hmm.
you were already into Wes Anderson, weren't you?
Yeah, that
Before
that
this,
that's it
and I wasn't.
exactly.
I wasn't
Yeah.
really.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, maybe that's probably something to do with it. But
Yeah.
I had a really good time with this film.
Oh no, that's good. That's good. Well, my number five, I think that's what number we're on.
Yep.
Yep, is the Darjeeling Limited. It's only this high because of the first half of the movie. I love the first half of this movie. I love the setting, India. It's beautiful. The
Yeah,
culture's amazing, and I love seeing these three really interesting characters. And like you touched on, they've all got something. One of them being in an accident, one's got a kid on the way. They've all got these little quirky bits to them, and they're out of their comfort zones. And it's great seeing them interact with other quirky characters on the train. It feels great. And then halfway through, they're sort of unexpectedly sort of kicked off the train because you think they're going to be on the train for the whole movie.
yeah.
And then the back half of the movie is just not as interesting. There are still some good moments to it because these characters keep it going, but
Hmm.
it's just not as interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's higher up for you than me, because it seems like we have very similar feelings on this film.
Hmm.
But I think you like the second half more than I do. I just
Yeah.
didn't care for anything really, because I like films that all take place in one location,
Hmm.
which I thought that they were going to be on the train for the whole
Hmm.
time,
Yeah.
and when they didn't, I just thought that it went downhill a lot.
Mm. Yeah. It's understandable, to be fair, because as much as I love the first half and I don't mind the second half, I would have much rather them just stayed on the train for the whole movie.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'll go on to my number 4 then,
Hmm.
which is the most recent one that I'd seen actually, and that is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
Ah, very nice. Hmm.
I really, really like this film. I've
Hmm.
got to say, my top 4 are
Hmm.
really close to one another. I
Yeah.
thought this film was so much fun.
Hmm.
Out of like obviously I prefer the films that are higher than this,
Hmm.
but on a pure entertainment level,
Yeah,
I've got to say that this might be the most entertaining Wes Anderson film for me.
I
I
think it's got the most humor. I think
uh
definitely.
It does have the most humor, and I love Bill Murray in this
Hmm.
film. He
Yeah.
was so good,
Hmm.
and Owen Wilson as well, and how their
Yeah.
storylines progressed. I had a really good time with this film.
Mm.
I'm kind of a bit. This is the thing when you watch a good film, I've been hearing for a while that it's good
Hmm.
because I know that you like it. You've mentioned it a few times,
Yeah.
and then I'm
Hmm.
kind of kicking myself. I'm like, why didn't I watch this years ago? But I can't
Yeah.
wait to watch it again. I really had a good time with it.
It's one that I go back to a lot. In fact, because I've got it as a Criterion Blu-ray, I think it is the Criterion I've watched the most in my whole
Hmm.
Criterion collection. I go back to this film so much. I
I
really
can't
love
blame
it.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see why.
I mean, you'll see where it is on my list soon, but it's not next. It's I really love that movie.
Mm.
But I'm the same though. My top four are all just sort of all neck and neck. Really, I love
Yeah.
them all kind of equally. But this is the order I've gone for. My number four is the Royal Tenenbaums, which I think I'm a sucker for like quirky families when they're stuck in a big house. I
Yeah.
love that kind of stuff, movies like that. And I found this film thoroughly entertaining. And it's like you say, this one doesn't really focus on the plot much. It is more character driven. But the characters are just also fascinating, and you sort of never know what the next one's going to come out with. And the relationship between all of them with the father, I found fascinating. And I love the look of this movie as well. I think this is really where Wes Anderson's flair comes in,
Hmm.
because I think this was his third film. Yeah, this is sort of the one where it's sort of just all kind of come alive, and you've got the real Wes Anderson style, and you've got the real Wes Anderson characters, and I just find this film thoroughly entertaining.
Hmm. Yeah, it's hard to argue. It really is, and I'm the same. I like quirky families coming together, and
Yeah.
that's basically what this film was.
Hmm.
It's just for me personally, it was a bit thin on the plot,
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's
but
fair.
I
Hmm.
still agree with pretty much everything that you said.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so my next one is Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Okay. Hmm.
Is that your next one?
That's my next one as well.
Okay. I thought it might be. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can talk about it together then.
Mm.
Um, but out of the two, although I mentioned I do really like Isle of Dogs, and I saw
Yeah.
Isle of Dogs before this because I didn't grow up
Mhm.
with Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, see, I
I
saw the
only watched,
kid. I
yeah, I only watched it for the first time probably about a year and a half ago, I want to say.
Mhm.
Um, but I just this film is so much fun, and everyone's different. All
Mhm.
of the characters, you've got the fox and all of the people that he interacts with. And Free, on a pure voice acting, I was thinking about this because I rewatched this a few days ago.
Mhm.
From a pure voice acting in an animated film, this is right up there. I think that the voice
Mhm.
acting and how they fit with the characters is
Mhm.
so good in this film.
Yeah.
You got Michael Gambon as one of the villains.
Mhm.
Dumbledore.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing that. And George Clooney he's just fantastic, and it's
Yeah.
only a voice performance, but they all fit the characters. I just love the narrative. I
Mhm.
think it's so much fun. Yeah, I really love this film.
Yeah. Oh, I think I remember seeing a video online of Wes Anderson getting the voice actors like running about out in like some field. So in scenes where they were running and talking, he'd have them actually running in a field, and he'd have like a boom mic following them. So
Oh wow.
I think that's how they recorded some of those lines. But yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I think it's great. I think it's an amazing film for like younger people as well. Like, because I grew up with this. Because I think Roald, obviously being based off a Roald Dahl book, I think that the stop motion brings it to life really well and fits the
Yeah.
Roald Dahl style. And yeah, I think he done just a fantastic job with it. The quirkiness is still there, but it's got a nice kind of more child friendly style of filmmaking to it, because obviously he knows that younger people are going to be watching this one as well. Um, and yeah, it get just the color palette of this movie is beautiful. It looks
Yeah.
fantastic, and some of the cinematography as well. Like I remember some of the shots with like where it be a long shot of like his tree house that he lives in, and it at night, and it looks beautiful. It's a really really good looking movie.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. And what you were saying with Isle of Dogs about how he often has his characters kind of just turn and look at the camera and
Hmm.
then, say stuff to each other, but they're not really
Hmm.
saying it to each other. They're saying it to the camera.
Yeah.
I do think that because he does that quite a lot in Fantastic Mr.
Hmm.
Fox, and I think that it works a lot better in this film. I think it
Yeah.
really does work for this film.
Yeah. So do I. I agree. I think this film's a lot better in nearly every aspect, and I love the soundtrack as well. I want to say it's got a really nice soundtrack to it.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So that was my third. So, and that was your fourth, wasn't it? Or third?
That was my third.
Oh, so they were both at number 3 for us.
Yes, both at number 3.
All right. Then I will say that I've got to say, I said this about the top 4, but my number 1 and 2 are so close, and I actually had them the other way round
I'm
until
trying to. I know one of them that's left. What other one haven't? Oh, it's Moonrise, isn't it?
yeah.
Moonrise and Grand Budapest.
Yeah, I've got to say, because obviously when I say my number 2, we know what my number 1 is. I've got to say, so I will start by saying that my number 1 is actually Moonrise Kingdom,
Oh, okay.
which
You
was
must
a
have not
lot.
been happy when I said it's so low.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, we'll talk about this in a second when I get to my number 1. But for me, Moonrise Kingdom just works a lot more than it seems to for you. But Grand Budapest Hotel, which is my number 2, I love this film so much. I really, these top 2, I just love them. Yeah, it takes place in, well, it's not all in one location, but the hotel's featured a lot, and then obviously in a prison. And I've got to say, Ralph Fiennes in this film might be one of my best performances, my favorite performances from him.
Oh yeah, I think it's his best performance, definitely.
Yeah. In terms of pure entertainment from a character point of view, I do think that this is probably my favorite from him.
Yeah.
He's so good in this film. The film is so much fun, and it's got this, it's a mystery kind of film, and that does work. But he focuses again more on the characters and how the characters kind of uncover the mystery, and I'm just with them. I loved going on this mystery with the characters. I just think that it's a thoroughly entertaining film. It really is.
Well, I completely agree, because I'll do the same then. I'll read out my number 1 and then I'll revert back and talk about my number 2. My number 1 is the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Okay.
So my second place is The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which I remember because as I said, sort of grew up with Fantastic Mr. Fox, and then I watched Grand Budapest Hotel when it came out, and I went and bought Moonrise Kingdom and the Darjeeling Limited. They were the only other 2 available on Blu-ray at the time, because Criterion hadn't released his earlier films here in the UK. And I remember going through IMDb, looking at all these films. I was like, The Life Aquatic, that one looks really interesting. So I love Bill Murray, and it's a marine type film. He's in a submarine. I was like, that just looks fun. It looks like my kind of thing. So I picked up the DVD and just fell in love with that movie. I think I watched it as soon as it finished. I started it again, which I don't do very often, and I loved it. Bill Murray, it's my favorite Bill Murray performance. I know it's not his most critically acclaimed one, but I just think he's so funny in this. The hijacking scene is my favorite Wes Anderson scene ever, maybe. I love it. The humor in this one, it's his funniest movie. I mean, Jeff Goldblum's in it as well. So good in it. But the relationship between Bill Murray's character and Owen Wilson's is fantastic. And I love how weird it is when it shows like the marine life. Like there's a bit where a kid's got a bag with a fish in, and it's like a what do you call them? I forget what they're called. The ones with the little towels.
Oh, the seahorse.
Yeah, the seahorse. That's it. He's got a little seahorse. It's like multicolored with spots on, and it's like, this is so weird, but I love it.
Yeah, and then he has to put it in like a prosecco glass and carry it. He carries it above his head.
It's so weird, but I love it. But yeah, no, I just really love this movie. I think, and Willem Dafoe is hilarious in this film. He is so funny.
Yes, because he was doing this. This film came out not long after he was Green Goblin in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. And I was thinking about that while watching this, because they're just so different. I agree. He was fantastic in this film.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love this film. I think it's I think Budapest is quite an easy number one for me, but this is like a very, very easy second. Like my top two, I sort of have sort of set in stone in my head. But I do love, like as I said earlier, my top four a lot. All four of them, I love them.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I've briefly touched on it already, but I will say that my
Hmm.
number one is Moonrise Kingdom. I don't know why. I
Hmm.
just I just connected with this story.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really have an answer for it other than I just really did. I found that the story between the two kids, they run away.
Hmm.
They're both they both come from not exactly broken homes, but they're not they're not at a good place in their life. They're not
Hmm.
Neither of them are very happy with where
Yeah.
they are. So then they meet each other and they run away. And
Mm.
I just really connected with it. I thought that it was sweet and charming and funny. And you mentioned how there are a lot of side characters, which there are.
Hmm.
But I really liked all of them. And Bruce Willis as well is in the film. And
Hmm.
Bruce Willis is, especially recently, and this film only came out 2012, and that's kind of past prime Bruce Willis. Like nowadays, you don't know what you'll get with him,
No. Yeah.
whether he'll turn in a good performance. And he was so good in this film, and
Hmm.
obviously he ends up kind of adopting the kid at the end. I just found that relationship really sweet as well, and yeah, there's just a lot of exciting moments in this for me with the thunderstorm and everything at the end. Yeah, I just really connected with this film,
Yeah.
obviously, more so than you did.
Hmm. Well, that's completely fair. I can't argue any of the points. It's I do like the film. I do like the film. I do think
Hmm.
it's a very good film.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Well, I love it, and
Hmm.
but like I was saying, I really the top two they may change again because they are
Yeah.
very. I
Hmm.
love both of my top two.
Yeah.
Mm.
No,
But
they're both very good movies. Well, I mean, my number one, which you've already spoken about, is of course the Grand Budapest Hotel. Um, I just really connected with this movie. I think I love the way it looked, the cinematography, the color palette of it, the score as well. The editing was fantastic. The pacing was great. Everything technical about this movie, I think, works perfectly. And on top of that, you've just got these amazing characters. All of them are hilarious. But of course, Ralph Fiennes, as you said, steals the show. He has some moments where I was rolling with laughter, like when they read the will and they say that he's entitled to the estate and boy with apple or whatever it was. Um, and he's that someone goes, well, who the hell's this guy? And then he just like pops in with his campness, where he's like, I'm afraid that's me, darling. It's like I
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Um, and all the side characters in this work perfectly. The ending I really liked. I thought it was bittersweet. And yeah, I really can't gush about this film enough. I genuinely think I put it in my top 20 films, maybe. I really, truly love this movie. I think it is absolutely fantastic. And to me, it is one of those perfect movies.
yeah, yeah. That's fair. I can't fault anything. I really can't.
Mm,
And as I say this, it may end up being my number one. Maybe when I've
yeah.
rewatched them both a couple of times.
Hmm.
Because yeah, the Grand Budapest, it does just have such a quirky
Mm,
style to it.
yeah.
More so than Moonrise Kingdom.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I love both of them. I forgot to mention Moonrise Kingdom as well. I think the cinematography and the locations
Gorgeous. Yeah. Great.
is gorgeous,
Mm,
and I'm just a sucker for those kind of like beautiful like
mm,
beaches and stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just really connected with that. But there we
Right
go.
then.
Those are
Well,
our lists.
hey, there we go. We're done. Wes Anderson, our worst to best, 9 movies. We done it. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll do it again next year because we might have different lists, and we'll have the French Dispatch on there, of course, as well.
Yeah, I did just want to briefly touch on that because we got a trailer a while ago for that now, didn't we?
Yeah, and it was a
Um,
very good trailer, but I just, COVID.
yeah,
Will we? Won't we? I don't know if
yeah,
we'll get it this year. I'd like to think we will now.
I think we will.
Yeah,
I think so because I think if I'm not mistaken, was it supposed to come out towards the end of 2020?
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was a late one.
Yeah. And that gives me hope because maybe it's Oscar worthy because that's usually where they
Mm,
try and put the Oscar worthy films. So if that's the case, I think it might
hmm.
come out at the end of this year. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Yeah, definitely. Fingers crossed. I think it will be a good one though. It looks good. It looks very Grand Budapest-y. I think we're in safe hands with this one.
And I was looking at the cast earlier as well for it, and
Yeah,
all of his usual people are there: Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, but there are a lot of great actors in that film. So
yeah, very exciting.
wait.
Definitely one of my most anticipated ones at the minute.
Yeah, I've got to say it wasn't on my like top 10 before. I've just kind of binged his films over the past week, but now it probably would be.
Yeah, no, it's I'd probably say it's in my top 5. I'm really excited to see this movie. Really excited.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, as I said, that is it for the video. Guys, make sure you go check out Alex's channel. Link in the description is down there. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. An absolute blast. And we'll have to do it again soon.
Yes, definitely.
Also, don't forget to go check out the video that we done on Alex's channel. It premiered just before this one. We go over our Taika Waititi ranking as well. But anyway, that is it for this video, guys. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a message. And as always, I'll see you next time for another video. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, hello and welcome back to another video, everyone. Now, as you can today, fuck me. Okay, let's start that again. I do that a lot, actually.